crank it up. I'm Jim Price, and for today's Bandit rule, I want to talk about rule number 3, Nowhere for Funbear. This rule, which Funbear well encapsulates, states that opposing players should never have direct control over your power unless you are absolutely planning a gotcha. If you allow these types of abilities, it means I have yet another avenue to generate more power on a base and exploit your gains for my efficiency on my turn. I am of the firm belief that these abilities almost never work, completely backfiring, and in the past have made it my mission to keep them out of the game. But these types of abilities come in many forms, some of which are deceiving, and I admit a rather modern card slipped through the cracks. Before I get to the specifics of this rule and various examples, I need to state that this rule has its critics, and they are passionate. Some people swear that these types of abilities work, but I obviously disagree, and I think I recall about 6 cards that have successfully been kept out of the game with related abilities while I playtested. It may seem like they are good in multiplayer, getting you second place, but you are still giving someone else first, and it doesn't contribute to the overall goal of winning. Let's use Funbear as a specific example of what I mean. My group used to absolutely fear Funbear until we realized we could just exploit it. Once that realization occurred, Funbear became an objectively bad play, especially in the teddy bear context. Funbear must gain a counter anytime a rival minion is played there. Consider the day of smashing when I played a bunch of groupies, knowing that Funbear would gain counters as a reaction. That gave me additional power to work with and made it easier to break the base for the win. From a pure math standpoint, every 2 power I add only generates 1 power, so a chain of plays still puts me out ahead and just makes me more efficient. With the fact that teddy bears don't play many minions outside their own burst, it means that it's very hard for them to have enough power where Funbear generates a lead. Worse, if I play many minions, I'm not likely to be in love overload territory, but Funbear is, potentially blocking its own ability. And as the active player, I can math out exactly what is going to happen, thus the ability to exploit the power for my benefit. The original Funbear is a minion we all know and hate without realizing it, Armor Stego. It's the same type of effect, just infinitely easier to exploit. By giving you the power on rival turns, the rival is in control of your power, and the dinosaurs have no backup plan. They have no extra minion plays to use for Armor Stego like a blockade. Similarly, Weed Eater has the same pitfalls. The first player to make use of the excess of power is not you. It honestly begs the question, why do we hate the flat, easy increases, but like the cards that potentially can give away more power? I honestly don't know, because it's the same underlying principle. Despite the efforts to keep these types of cards out, the game seems to love them, as do some players, and there are 2 main strategies to try to make them work, both of which end badly. The first is to make the power increase optional instead of obligatory. If obligatory power can be exploited, then making it optional might prevent that. And we've tried. In actuality, what the reacting player has to do is calculate how much power you can add and determine whether or not it is in their best interest. This slows the game down considerably, ruining the tempo of a turn, and usually the answer is still no. For the answer to be yes, you would need examples where this ability works in the obligatory sense, because the end math is the same, and those don't exist. Also, optional conditionals are terrible, and I really hope I get to tell a particular story about this someday. The other approach is to scale the ability so that it outpaces the gain by the other player. I think Jackie Bill is an attempt at this, but it's really hard to do. If not done carefully, then you make it even more efficient for them, and again, the player who is the active player has control over the mathematical ceiling. Jackie Bill has to calculate each time, and it's a card that I've soured on. For these type of abilities to work, you really need a gotcha, and I think the Vigilantes tried this with the Revenge. You build up power, intentionally losing, then moving off to win elsewhere, and sometimes this works, but not enough to justify 2 Funbear types in the Vigilantes. The modern card that snuck past us all is actually Onini the Python. Onini is meant to be a deterrent to playing or discarding Anansi cards, but I don't think it works in practice, because it's deterministic for the rival. While I do like the Hornets because they can be played anywhere, something about Onini feels like I'm getting the wrong end of it, and despite playing Anansi a ton, they are in my top 3 factions after all, it's been an eternity since Python made a difference. As a viewer who recently betrayed me said, Onini is just a blank forward terminal play for him. It seems like Anansi wants to combine Hornets and Onini, but it really hasn't worked out in practice, and if it did, It's honestly the Hornets doing the heavy lifting for a much higher payout. You may be wondering, how does this differ from come at me strategies, where you are baiting someone? It's a fair question, but I think the key difference is that come at me needs to be at the 60% mark or higher, and you are very intentional about each power you put down. Here, it's often you aren't winning at the time the play starts, and you just help someone be more efficient. Also, while I love a good come at me play, anecdotally, how often does it work? If having guaranteed power doesn't always work, how is power you can't rely on or trigger yourself expected to work? If you look carefully, there are other rival power activations hiding in plain sight. In what is probably an oversight, Tiki does not have to be your action. So when you need power, but not winning power, that's an opportunity for an unexpected 2 power you can exploit from your rival, with the added bonus of blocking a moderate, but I wouldn't do it anyway Sun Tattoo play. Mountie Major used to have an awesome ability, but a certain nameless card now basically makes it a big drop instead of a baiting card, because if you did seed it, it's really helping the active player. For our group, Heracles used to be one such minion, because he reacts to any player, but now Heracles strictly precedes a big drop because it's temporary power anyway. While the potential for exploitation is there, the fact that you can use Heracles yourself means you don't have to seed it, and this actually gives us a clue as to how to best align the power potential of siphoning power while not allowing it to be exploited. The card that does this best, that comes to mind immediately, is actually Black Trooper. Black Trooper triggers after a special ability is used, and in Phase 2, it's really hard for your rivals to do this a lot without specific cards. However, there's a built-in gotcha because Black Trooper wants to trigger often because getting to Phase 3 on your turn is actually doing the Mega Troopers a favor. That power helps you get to the breakpoint, but the Mega Troopers player still has a ton of specials to ruin your math, making it much harder to math out a victory. If you're going to want these types of abilities, really lean into them with specials. This is what the elves do so well. Fayfighter knows with the elven specials that they are meant to get the better end of the deal, and the inversion of the standard principle is what makes cards like Elf Help Guru and Pumping Iron work when they do. With these type of fun bear cards, I tend to view them as power creep that you can't control and ultimately can't help you. What's interesting is that the opposite of these abilities tend to be super effective, your hatchlings and your siren types. Instead of trying to rise to the occasion, which can be exploited, you slow someone down and try to stop them. That way, the opportunity to maximize your turn is still in play. When you only have one minion, how does making it a 6 power instead of 4 power help you? It doesn't, but it really helps your opponent. Faction context really matters here. For reasons I can't really explain, while Mimic definitely has the potential to be exploited, that really doesn't happen to me, and I enjoy playing Mimics non-terminally to seed power potential. Lovey Bear, however, definitely backfires for me. I think the difference might be that Shapeshifter minions are much easier to play, whereas the lack of readily playable teddy bears forces you to play Lovey Bears, which can benefit me. Also, it makes sense to seed Mimics, because I as the Mimic player can control my benefit, but unless I am playing Lovey Bears terminally, I'm not in control of them ever unless I move them, and the teddy bears have no movement. It's the same reason why Haunting has a head-scratching invulnerability, because to have that on someone else's turn is terrible, giving them +3 power. The key to exploitation versus opportunity lies in how easy it is to enable the trigger. Top tier, for example, could be triggered by a forceful discard, or Phase 4, but neither really aligns with the idea of breaking a base in Phase 3. Same with Guide, who doesn't care about how the minion is moved. If you have the abilities to destroy monsters, then allowing a star player to gain a counter could be beneficial. For every time Flock forces moves for you and it works out well, a movement faction can exploit them for their own gain. But these other cards are very exploitable, and so are the other cards that we successfully kept out of the game. And they only added 2 questionable Funbear types in the coming stuff, so that feels like progress. The Nowhere for Funbear rule is designed to prevent giving power away, power that everyone but you can control. Depending on the trigger and faction context, you may be giving away power without realizing it. Even if you can access it, someone else may just be accessing it first. While I love power activation is all about you activating your power on your terms, not someone else on theirs. What do you think of Rule 3? Can you think of examples where these types of minions work, or other examples where they don't? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.